Hello everyone, so we are back with another awesome video. I'm sure you're finding our content useful. So please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Now let's talk about this video. In this video, we are going to discuss about career path as an QA with our expert Ryan Vivans. Please welcome Ryan with me.
Okay, Ryan, so please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, I'm Ryan Bevins. I am a QA community lead at Potentia. I have about 17 years of QA experience, and then I moved into the community space about 6 or so months ago. So I've just kind of been enjoying meeting various candidates and such, and basically it's mostly in the recruiting space, but luckily I get to do things like this as well.
Thanks for the introduction, Ryan. That's really good to hear. So we will start with our first question though. Our first question is as we all are from QA background, right? Why QA is considered as a second choice? We have seen this practice in industry. Why it is considered as the second choice?
Yeah, I think it's really funny because I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that QA is not specifically taught in universities. So most of what people see their exposure is in the development space. So you'll find that QA is a lot like roles like BAs and even like product owners and stuff. They're just not known about. And so once they start getting into the environments and once they start actually doing internships and such, they look around and start going, what is this QA thing, right? So it just kind of default becomes a second choice. It becomes a second option of, oh, can I do something and not be a developer? I consider it kind of wrong in some ways, but it's the way most people understand it when they're coming out of university.
Thanks, Ryan. That makes complete sense what you just said. Okay, so let's talk more about career path now. So there are QAs who are interested in coding, and there are some QAs who are not very much interested in coding. So what do you suggest? What should be the career path of tester if he or she is a manual QA, or what will be the career path of a QA if he or she is an automation QA?
I think for me, one of the most important things is kind of to figure out where you want your career path to be. If you like that technical space, if you're really into that, I think the automation space is good. I think I've seen a lot of people turn to developers. I've seen people just exist in the automation space. I think as you learn, it's important to kind of specialize when you're in the automation space. Whenever you're in a technical environment, I find it better for people to kind of learn in specific avenues. So if you want to go down, the data route where you can become like an ETL tester, or do you want to start doing security with penetration testing and those kind of things? Do you want performance testing? So I think it's smart to kind of go and kind of find a niche market and kind of specialize in that so that you can be more well-rounded and you can say, I can put together your automation tests, but I can also do this thing. So that when somebody comes calling someone like myself and says, hey, Ryan, I need somebody who knows how to do machine learning. I have my group of people that I talk to regularly that I go, hey, I got a machine learning person for you, right? They're ready to go. So that's what I think is usually your best if you're really into the automation, if you're really into the technical side. Some people do, like I said, some people will go into the development space if they're really into it. But I don't see as many people doing that. I think for the most part, you see them just building new frameworks and just kind of going the contractor route, really. Now, for manual testing, that's an interesting space to be in right now because we're definitely seeing a move towards more technical testers. I personally really like people to be a little more hands-on. When I was a hiring manager, I liked people that could do both or at least had exposure to both. So one thing I usually tell people if they're in the manual space is to at least gain an understanding of how automation works. You don't have to be super technical, but you at least need to know how it works. Because if you want to get into the lead space, if you want to start managing people, managing projects and that kind of stuff, you really need to know how that works. Even if you don't know the how, you need to know why and the best ways and the best usages of automation. Otherwise, you do see a lot of people in manual testing will start going into the BA space. They'll become business analysts. They'll become product owners, project managers sometimes. Just because I think we all know that if you've been in the QA space long enough, if you're in smaller shops, you tend to become one of those people anyway, whether you like it or not, right? We tend to be the organizers. So then people will go into that space, but I think you at least have to gain a decent understanding of the technologies you're using. Get yourself, more involved in the database and the back end, and you got to get API testing. Because even if you're not an automation tester, that doesn't mean you're not using Postman. It doesn't mean you're not, getting in there and still using tools of the trade in order to do what you need to do. So yeah, just get out there and keep learning.
Thanks, Ryan, for such an excellent piece of advice. So next question to you is, if a person is newly joining a job, how to excel in that job? I mean, what should be the initial steps so a person can take so that he or she can excel at their job?
I think, at least for QA, it should be relatively easy, in my opinion, because I think the skills that make a good tester make a good new employee, right? Because to me, there's two major things that QA should be able to do. One of them is risk assessment, which isn't going to help you in this instance as much. But number two is being able to ask the right questions, right? We should be able to walk into a company. Your main thing is gaining context, figure out what your company does, who your end user is, who the product is actually supposed to be serving, right? Because that's where a lot of our focus tends to go. We want to know what the end user is supposed to be doing with our product. And then the second part is just get to know people, whether it's just your team, whether it's the important people behind the scenes. I think those are good. Get to know your product people. As QA, we tend to work pretty intimately with product people, at least if you're embedded into a team. If you're in one of those kind of situations where there is a tester embedded in the team, but there's automation team back here doing their own bits, make sure you get to know the QAs within the teams, right? Make sure you have those connections, and just don't feel like you're asking dumb questions. I find that for most of my career, I've kind of existed in the asking dumb questions phase, where I don't mind asking a question that seems to be pretty obvious, because often you'll have three people that are coming out of a meeting thinking they all have the right answer, and asking a stupid question makes them all go, "Oh, I had a different answer to that question." So, just be a QA, be interested, be learning, always be learning, and always asking heaps of questions. That's usually what I tell people to do. It's a good point to get in.
That's very true. Asking question is indeed very important. So, Ryan, any last piece of advice for our audience, since most of your experiences in recruiting and now also you're part of that team? So, how should people do while looking for their job change?
I think the important thing is to engage, because I've been a hiring manager at quite a few companies, in the QA space, as well as my recent experience in the recruiting. And you'll find that when you're looking for a role, asking lots of questions is really important. And asking them about how they do business, asking about those kind of end user questions. I think more people want to see that. And I think people are usually afraid to ask some of those questions, or they don't know enough about a company when they start interviewing, right? The people that I find that are successful everywhere they go are those people that have researched the company and that ask lots of questions, and that go in and go, "Oh, I really see recently this, there's this article that came out. Can you tell me about that?" Or just, especially if you're talking to people who do the work, maybe not HR so much, right? But when you're sitting down in an interview with a hiring manager, somebody in the team, just be engaged, be interested, and just talk to people. Admit when you don't know something. I think people are really looking for honesty, and I think people have a tendency of trying to exaggerate themselves, and I think there's some of that is needed. But I think when you get down to actually talking to people, you need to make sure that you can say, "I don't know," right? I don't know how to do this thing, but I can learn, right? That's the important follow-up, is I can learn how to do this. I see a lot of people with various languages, especially in the automation space, where it's kind of like, "Oh, you specifically want to do this in JavaScript." Well, I've done these other things, and I can learn that pretty quickly. It might take me a little while to learn, but I can learn it. And I think just having that attitude will get you where you need to be.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for sharing your vast experience and knowledge with us. Like, we really appreciate it, and we hope our audience will love it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was really nice being able to talk to you too.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I'll mention your LinkedIn profile link in the description, so whosoever wants to connect with you, he or she can. Thank you.
Great. I'd love it.